Welcome to the Sweet Life of Steve, and today we're making a delicious apple cake and a creamy whiskey anglaise to pour over the top of that. We'll also do an Irish mule with whiskey and hard apple cider. This cake is a play on a recipe my mother taught me how to make. In fact, I made it for Rob the very first time we celebrated his birthday together. And it has become his favorite cake. Honestly, I think he just likes the whiskey anglaise. Let's make a mule. I love me a good mule. What sound does a mule make? Hee-haw, I'm a mule. I think that's right. Anyway, we're going to start with some whiskey from our friends at Blackwater. About 2 ounces. That looks about right. That's out of tune. Then, about 4 ounces of hard apple cider. This comes from our friends at Rebel Seed. Or you could just drink this by itself, because it's delicious. Top that off, topping, with some ginger beer. I mean, come on, look at this. Why is it so spicy? It would be really cool if I could do that thing. Like this. Fire in the hole! Ah! God damn it. I wasn't a college drinker, so I don't know how to flippy that. There we go. Cut, print, moving on. All right, this is so delicious, by the way. It's time to bake cake. So, this method is a little bit different. This is not a cream butter method. This is a cardamom method. So we're starting with eggs and sugar, and we're going to paddle that until it is light and fluffy. I'm also going to add my salt at that time because this is the most mixing that it's gonna get. So that salt gets really evenly incorporated instead of adding it at the end where you could have little salt pockets. Then I'll stream in my other fat, which is my oil. I'm using canola oil in this instance because I grew up on a canola farm. Then we're gonna do our dry ingredients and our apples and a little bit of milk. Here we go! Starting with my sugar, my salt, and then I want to get ready because if I add my eggs right away and don't start mixing, they could burn. Eggs, and we're going to paddle at a medium speed, about speed 5 or 6. Appers. Okay, so this has been going for about 5 minutes and I want you to see this. In French, we say blanchir, which basically means to make light. It's not a fancy term at all. It's like the French word for garbage is vidange. It doesn't make it any fancier. Look, so this we need to get to this nice ribbon stage. So see how it just pulls right off that paddle? That's exactly what we want it to be. And also look at how beautiful light that is. It's gorgeous. Kind of almost looks like pancake batter a little bit. And you see how it sort of stays on the top as it dribbles down just for a few seconds before melting inside. That's exactly where we want it to be. Now we're going to stream in our oil at about speed 4 on this guy, so it's somewhere between low and medium, kind of hovering right in there. Nice and slowly. Almost there. This is where we give it a good scrape, making sure we get all of that vegetable oil down in there. Now again, I'm using canola oil because that's what I like. You want to use a neutral flavored oil for this. And because we're using oil, not butter, this cake is going to be incredibly moist and delicious. Moist. So you see we still have this really nice ribbony, it's beautiful, it's light, it's wonderful. The rule of thumb for any time you're doing a cake especially is alternating dry and wet, beginning and ending with dry. In this case, we're going to do 1/3 of our dry mixture and then about 1/2 of our apples. Then 1/3 of our dry mixture, the remaining apples and a little bit of milk, and then finally the remainder of our dry ingredients. The batter's gonna look a little bit dense and you might say to yourself, this doesn't look like cake batter. But you're wrong, it is cake batter. Also, I'm using like a medium fleshed apple. I love galas or Fujis when it comes to baking. You don't want to use like a Macintosh because it's going to just melt and dissolve. And you definitely don't want to use a red velvet. Wait, that's not an apple. You don't want to use a Red Delicious. That's like the firewood of apples. They have 0 flavor and 0 taste. Sorry, Red Delicious producer people, if that's a thing. You'll notice that I didn't even peel them. Why? 'Cause I'm lazy. Raise your spatula. God, that. Just a spatula. Oh, you need it in here? This situation is getting to me a little bit. I'm a little bit drunk. What are we doing? You want the spatula in here? Oh, yeah, you want that. Okay, great. It's like we're filming a cooking show. You want that. I also have my spices in here, which is very important for my dry ingredients. So about 1/3, just eyeball. And then about half of my apples. Then another 1/3. My milk. And the rest of my apples. And then the last of my dry ingredients. Stop and scrape at the very end. Look at that. We got cake batter. Now you notice it's a little bit thicker, kind of almost feels like muffin batter, but it's not wrong. This is exactly how it's supposed to be. Just get your finger in there. So good. I'm going to pour this into a greased and floured and parchment lined cake pan. I'm using a 10-inch one here. This is going to ensure that our cake comes out perfectly clean. And that trick about it pulling away from the sides will work really well with the floured pan. Just pour that batter right on in here in this incredibly awkward fashion so that everybody at home can see it. Just spread that around the top a little bit so it's nice and even. And you can give it a little bit of a bang just to knock out any of the air. Now, bakers beware. This is going to bake for at least 45 minutes. So don't think that you can just sort of do this quickly and it'll be done in 10 minutes and everything's gonna be fine, great, fabulous, wonderful. It won't. And if it's taking a little bit longer, then just bake it until it's done. Preheated 350-degree oven, that's 175 degrees centigrade, until it is finished. Toothpick inserted, comes out clean. It pulls away from the sides of the pan and springs back when you press it. Let's go to the oven, shall we? Oven. Time to make our anglaise, and I love anglaise. It's actually something that I could take a bath in. It's one of the most delicious sauces in the entire world, and here's how we're going to make it. First of all, you need to get everything set up, and you will need a water bath. So here's a little trick when it comes to water bath. I'm using a glass measuring cup that I've set into my ice bath. The reason I'm using glass is, yes, it retains heat, but it also retains cold. So as it's sitting in the ice bath, it's going to get colder itself. So when I pour that hot anglaise in there, it will help to stop the cooking process. It's also heavy, so it sinks to the bottom immediately. If I used a plastic vessel, while it's empty, it will actually float on the top. So it's practical and yet important. I have in here my milk and my cream, which I'm going to bring almost to the boil, somewhere between scald and boil. And while that's heating up, I've got my sugar, my vanilla bean paste, just a spooge, my egg yolks, and a little bit of salt, which will help to break up those yolks. I'm going to whisk this all together so it doesn't burn while my liquid heats up. Let's get started. Get those egg yolks in there, constantly moving. I've put a damp cloth underneath because then that actually holds the bowl independently and my left hand is free. So that's helpful. Constantly moving so that my egg yolks don't burn. This is something that I've learned from experience, that the more you whip this up and get it sort of paler in color, that blanchir that we were talking about, the better your anglaise is going to be. Oh shit! Whoops! This is the whiskey anglaise. We need the whiskey! About a tablespoon into that egg and sugar mixture. If we add it to the liquid, it's gonna cook longer, which means most of the alcohol will go away and most of the flavor. So we'll put it in here because it's not gonna cook nearly as long. Look at that, you can see it's getting a little bit paler in color. That's exactly what we want. Once my liquid comes to the almost boil, we're going to temper it into here while still whisking. Here we go. Little bits at a time so we don't scramble the eggs. A little bit more, and we'll do about half of my dairy. Now, these stupid pot people make this for right-handed cooks, but we're going to do the more working with our right hand, and this is a pour, so it's really a left-handed pot. So they need to put the divot on the other side. Who do I have to write to complain? Oh, dear Cuisinart, love Steve. Get all that in there. So I've done about half of my liquid, and what we'll want to make sure is that this is now the same temperature that this was. Yes, it is. Back into the pot we go, making sure to whisk that all together. And then we're going to switch to our spoonula. Drag along the bottom of the pot and stir around the perimeter. And we're going to do this just until we feel some resistance, and it naps the back of the spoon, which means when I draw my finger across it, you'll be able to see the path that I left with my finger. This really will happen relatively quickly, so you want to make sure that you're constantly stirring, really trying to feel the resistance from that liquid. And you will definitely notice it. It will start to give a little bit. At that time, that's when you just sort of test for the nap. We're there. So you see how it leaves a track? And now we strain this in case we have any little lumpy bits. So we have a nice, clean, smooth, velvety anglaise. Beautiful! We're gonna stir this every couple of minutes until it's cooled to room temperature. So could take a little bit of a while. We want to make sure that we're stopping the cooking process, and that's the importance of this ice bath. Now, if it is a little bit lumpy-dumpy and you've overcooked it, fear not, no need to throw it away. Just take the immersion blender and buzz it until it's completely smooth again. Boom, done. Little trick. Let's say that, you need to whip this up in a moment's notice because, oh, I don't know, like the president of the homeowners association is coming by, or Elton John, and you don't have time to make this. Just take some ice cream and let it melt. Pretty much the same thing, but this is so much better. So once this has cooled to room temperature, we need to get it in the refrigerator and let it set up. So an anglaise is definitely not something that you need to make the day you're going to serve it. You have to make it the day before. Sir Elton will be so happy. Look at this beautiful cake. Isn't that gorgeous? It's got this great crust on the top, a little bit craggly. We're gonna cut into that just so I want everybody to see. So good. Look at that. Oh, it's all moist, but it's a little bit dense, but it's still kind of soft. And there's a little bit of apples in there. This is wonderful. I love this cake because it's a bit of a denser batter. It also bakes beautifully in a bundt pan if you have one of those. So we'll get some of that gorgeous anglaise. Now this is stuff that I actually made yesterday, so it's thickened up quite a bit. Look at that. Ooh. Rob's gonna be so surprised. Honey! Today, look, happy birthday! I made you some cake.
Only a couple weeks.
I know, so exciting. So we're gonna rub that in forever. You didn't make me a cake on my birthday. You just made it a little bit later on. Do you like your drink?
I love my drink.
Yeah, it's gingery, right?
Mm-hmm.
I love gingery things.
Yeah.
Ooh.
With cake.
Yes, we can eat some cake. All right, make sure to get some of that nice anglaise.
Mostly anglaise.
Mostly anglaise, that's right. I'll just give you a straw for that. I can bake really good. What do you think?
Delicious, thank you.
You're welcome. Let's get a little bit more of that creamy goodness. It's moist, but there's still a little bit of a density to it. Anglaise is nice and cool. And get a little bit of the whiskiness.
A lot of the whiskiness.
A lot of the whiskiness, especially in that. So, Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like, subscribe, and comment below. Please let us know what's your favorite family cake recipe. That thing's gargling. You need to eat more cake. Bye.